Welcome to the One Question Leadership Podcast. I'm Greg Burke, and now in my 24th year as Director of Athletics at Northwestern State University. Creating an environment in which student athletes and young professionals can develop skill sets to make them successful in any walk of life is invaluable. Mentors can provide an extra measure of confidence by helping them grow, by seeking their input, and by listening to their ideas. This and much more can be found in Will Baggett and Ty Brown's book, The Blueprint for a Successful Career, a foundation for developing young professionals. Find it on Amazon.
Greetings, this is Ty Brown and welcome to the One Question Leadership Podcast, where we highlight executive and organizational leadership. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at 1Q Leadership. This episode will be hosted by one of our guest hosts, Kendi Hilliard. Kendi is a student athlete with Illinois State, and she's also an intern in the athletics department. Take it away, Kendi.
Welcome to the One Question Leadership Podcast. My name is Kendi Hilliard, and I'm a current volleyball player at Illinois State University, and today I will be guest hosting this episode of One Question. On this podcast, I will be featuring Miss Leanna Bordner. She is my SWA and the Deputy Director of Athletics at Illinois State University. Hi, Leanna, and thank you for coming to talk to me on this podcast.
Kendi, excited about this, looking forward to this conversation, and even more so, this internship that we're starting on this summer. Know that you'll have a terrific long run being an SWA and potentially even more someday.
What are some duties or responsibilities you have as a senior women administrator?
So at Illinois State, my role as the senior women administrator might be different than others on other campuses. Technically, the role of SWA is the highest ranking female in an athletic department. Those roles can change from campus to campus. My role as the SWA at Illinois State is I oversee 11 sports, men's and women's, work very closely with crisis management. I'm very, very involved on what we call the other side of campus, the academic side, being involved with campus committees in all different facets of the university, as well as being very involved in the community. I started my administrative career at Illinois State on the marketing side, so developed many, many relationships on the external side and continue to cultivate those relationships, those businesses, and connect the businesses back to our athletic department, specifically with our student athletes.
You mentioned a little bit about how your role as an SWA is different from other SWAs. Can you provide a little bit more detail about that for me?
I always like to say as well that I do whatever needs to be done within the athletic department. Your job description, regardless of what you do, always says other duties as assigned. So I've been involved with our NCAA certification. I work as the liaison with our athletics council, which is a subgroup of our academic senate. And I could go on and on, but the thing I enjoy most is my sports supervision. And it allows me the opportunity to stay connected to student athletes and continue to foster success in our student athlete ranks. You mentioned our strong history, and certainly we have a strong athletic history overall, but our history of women's sports is very, very well chronicled. The very first women's basketball national championship was held in Horton Fieldhouse in 1972, same year that Title IX was passed. And so I'm excited every year to talk to our student athletes about our history of our women's sports and do anything I can to educate our student athletes so that they know about the people that paved the way for them and provided them the opportunities that they have today.
So a question I have about that is, what are some of your current challenges that you have in the current college athletics industry as a former coach and an administrator?
Well, Kendi, are you talking about on a day-to-day basis or as we are all in this COVID space right now?
Right. Let's start with current day-to-day, and then we can feed into the COVID.
sounds good. So I feel like in our world of intercollegiate athletics today, it's very, very different than it was back when I started my administrative career 27 years ago. It's different than it was 10 years ago. And it's not just different for student athletes, but it's different for students as students, coming to college, going to universities, whatever it might be, higher education. They're coming to us a little differently than they may have many, many years ago. And so that has really made it very important for everyone involved in intercollegiate athletics to be agile and flexible and work to be as transparent with student athletes as you can. We need to listen. We need to make sure we know what is going on in our student athletes' lives. And, certainly with social media, with texting and that type of thing, communication is very, very, very important. I think that leaders today that communicate frequently, thoughtfully, honestly, it really helps. I think anytime there's a lack of communication, it can lead to negativity or mistrust. And I think that is something that is just really, really important today. And it is a challenge. It's a challenge because student athletes have so much on their plate, from their academics to their practices, to their strength, to their study center, to the community service, to their social life and things that are important to them. So I think, I don't think the challenges are much different from a coach to administrator. I think, as I look at my role now as an administrator, I'm coaching coaches. I used to coach kids. I used to coach student athletes. Now I coach coaches. But those things I mentioned, I think are very, very important to be able to lead today, to be able to influence, and really work at making the student athlete experience the championship experience. And championship experiences mean a lot of different things. As I recruit kids, I speak to prospects on unofficial and official visits, as I did with Kendi. Here at Illinois State, you're expected to win 3 championships. Number 1, in the classroom. Number 2, on the court, the pool, the track, wherever you compete. And number 3, in the community. We stress the student and student athlete very, very much. We're very, very proud of our academic success. That sells very well on campus and off campus. And we are very, very proud of that. And we will continue to lead our student athletes along that path.
Why do you, as a former student athlete and coach, think it is important to have SWAs at universities and colleges?
I think it's important for several reasons. Number one, I think, females need role models. Females that want to go into coaching or administration. I think that's very important. Now, as I mentioned, I do oversee men's sports. And I think it's important for them to see a female leading their programs and being involved in their programs. So I think it's also important for student athletes to see an administrator, what I'm going to say, in the weeds, with them at SAC meetings, SAC events, community service. Any chance that they get to see that you care, you're committed, they want to be communicated to, they want their opinions to matter. And all those kinds of things are things that I do as an administrator, as a senior woman administrator. I think it also helps in the leadership ranks when you have younger athletic administrators that can rely on your counsel, as they are also serving an athletic director, and it helps them grow, I help them grow. Hopefully I can provide opportunities for them to bounce ideas off me and and help them make sure that what they're doing in their next steps, maybe with a presentation or an idea or something they want to see come to life, as they continue to move it up the pole. So I think it's very, very important. I think, again, SWAs fill different roles on different campuses, and it doesn't really matter what the role is on a campus, what your duties or responsibilities are on a piece of paper. I think that the influence and everything you can do in your position is very, very valuable.
As a woman, what are some of the challenges you face in working in this male-dominated industry?
I look at those challenges as opportunities. And many years ago, when I was attending a seminar, I heard something that has always stuck with me. And one of the questions they ask us all, look in the mirror and ask, do you have a seat at the table or are you on the menu? And so that stuck with me. And it really made me start looking at things as opportunities. And I would say that, I have an opportunity every day to offer to handle whatever is on the plate of the athletic director. I have an opportunity every day to serve our student athletes and coaches. But make sure you know your why and know why you got there to serve. I also feel like it provides an opportunity to be a better leader, build, serve, create, inspire, motivate, all of those while you're navigating the world, regardless if it's men's athletics, men's sports, the male coaches or the male administrator. And certainly I think it's an opportunity for all of us to, especially in the time we're in right now, to lead with faith and not fear. And we all have to find a way to move forward. We need to, as part of a team, embrace a plan, work towards the plan. And I want to go back, and part of that is working together and communication. I already talked about communication, but as you move along this path of a senior women administrator in a male-dominated world, there's no doubt. Always provide clarity on what you're trying to do and believe in what you're doing, and surround yourself with people who can encourage you, and hopefully they're letting you know that they believe in you and what you're trying to accomplish. And just like a head coach with assistant coaches, trust. There has to be trust. There has to be trust. The assistant coaches have to trust the head coach. The assistant athletic directors have to trust the athletic director. And that works the other way as well, top down. So while certainly as a female in a male populated profession, there are challenges, but I try every day to look at those as terrific opportunities.
I'm very positive that you do. Just from working underneath you at SAC and just traveling trips with you to MVC tournaments through volleyball, what do you say to someone who's like me trying to get into the sports industry? Like, where should we start? Like, are we doing the right things of joining SAC as an undergrad, and just where should we start?
Yes, Kendi. And, the sooner you start, which that's one thing I really, really respect about you is, you're balancing the academics, the student athlete, and trying to get as much experience as you can. And in our world today of intercollegiate athletics, things have changed a lot from 25 years ago. 25 years ago, when we would hire our grad assistants, we would get candidates who had no undergrad experience. So you'd have them for 2 years, you'd train them year 1, year 2, they could contribute in a good way, and then they were gone. And now, and it doesn't matter what area you look at, students coming to our program and programs across the country have years, some 4, 3, 2, 1, of an undergrad experience, whether it be in a ticket office or in marketing or development. And those are the people that you are going to compete against when you're starting to look for jobs or look for grad assistantships. And so you have to build your resume as much as you can. And today, we're all looking for the grinder. We're all looking for the student or student athlete, the candidates who want to do more. Don't do less, want to do more. I finished my job. What else can I do now? And be a sponge. I think that's one thing that we need more and more of that from young people. You certainly have done a great job of that. And I know you're going to continue along that path. But the other thing that I think is really important, and I really believe this with student athletes and people, is the difference between good and great is what you're willing to do when nobody's watching. It's real easy to over deliver, outwork somebody when, the coach or the boss is working. But what are you really willing to do when nobody's watching you? And I think that's what separates people today. That's what separates student athletes, potential GAs, people looking for full-time jobs. And as we continue along this path in intercollegiate athletics, it's going to, determine your path moving from one position to the next, so that you can take my job someday.
Yes, ma'am. That's the plan.
It's a good plan, Kendi.
Well, Leanna, thank you for coming on the podcast today, and I look forward to continuing our internship this summer.
Thank you. I really enjoyed it, and I look forward to the next several months while we're working on this internship, and certainly, the fall, and seeing you back on the volleyball court.
Thank you for tuning in, and as always, I'm Kendi Hilliard, and go you Redbirds.
This episode of the One Question Leadership Podcast is produced by Spades Media Group, solving problems using creative leadership.